My name is Jason Impey and I'm a self-shooting independent filmmaker, and I have quite a raw DIY approach to filmmaking. I'm into film in general and have a wide interest in it all, but I myself like to go out there and just shoot and make stuff. There's a lot of red tape to cut through, so I've kind of over the years evolved and found a way to get through all that red tape and just to get out there and make your films rather than spend years trying to make your film. I find the best way, and one of the best ways to learn, is just to go and do it. It is easier said than done, but it's also a very frustrating industry, because if you try and do everything by the book, then I think it's very hard to get anywhere very fast if you do at all, because you're a very small fish in a very large pond.
Sex, Lies and Depravity, or as it was originally known as Jake, was an idea I had been working on for years, just about sort of life on UK council estates, lives in deprivation, and mental illness. And I ended up hooking up with Jason eventually, who had been directing various horror features, among other things, for many years beforehand, and he liked the script and we really rolled from there.
It was at the beginning of 2012 I was introduced to Wade Radford, who had a script that he had wrote. I'd been making many feature films, a lot in the horror genre at that point, which is one of my favourite genres, but I also like doing other stuff, and when I met Wade, he had this script which actually was a very gritty drama, and I liked it because, one, it was very gritty and hard hitting, and I'm into that sort of stuff, and it gave me a challenge because he wanted me to be the filmmaker on it. I found it very challenging because it dealt with sexual identity, drug and alcohol abuse, domestic violence, all dark subjects which for people run away from. I actually love dark subjects. I think they're more fun to work with because you can really play about, and I like being controversial and taboo and making my films stand out as well. And normally if a film is a bit controversial, it's going to get spoken about.
As with usual on films, casting the film was a fucking pain in the arse, as it generally is casting a film. You know, they're indie pieces. Certainly back then me and Jason were working on a £50 budget, which was just insane, and it never really got any better than that, to be honest. But, you know, we held auditions, we put casting adverts out, we had people come down to Milton Keynes from all over the country, even Wales. Most of the people that came ended up with a role, so as you can imagine there were queues out the front door. Some people were slightly more frightening and didn't get a role. I
found the script really interesting because it kind of dealt with everyday Joe blogs, really. It was about people that have not had the best start in life, or they found themselves in bad situations, and I think there's characters in there that you can relate to, even if you only relate to one or two. There's a real mixed bag of characters in there. And I also like the fact that it just deals with depression and hard life. I think life's very hard these days. I think it's a very hard thing just having a normal life. There's a lot of pressures from society, and everyone is pressurising their everyday life. I find it very hard just to get by sometimes. There's so many things to worry about and have to do, and I think this film highlights that a lot. That, you know, people do struggle with everyday life, and it just shows how people can break and they can try and create their own little world or their own false reality, and how that can just crack and break down. And I found it very appealing to... I found it very emotional as well, watching some of the characters kind of decline into this spiral of madness where they try and be this big person, but behind closed doors a lot of people are like this. Behind closed doors they're very weak and vulnerable, and they don't like to show it, but this film opens those doors and shows you just how weak and vulnerable even the best of us can be.
We started filming Sex, Lies in March 2012. I believe the first night we started out was at the pub scenes, with Ethan in the bar, with Carla going outside, meeting Zach's character, Kyle, that's the one. And so yeah, we sort of started slowly like that. The whole process took 10 days, with, I think, the last day of shoot racked up about 18 hours, and we'd gone through the night, and then lovely English weather decided to storm at 5 o'clock in the morning, so we were battling torrential rain while Jake was battering his missus.
Making Jake, which it was called back in the time, now Sex, Lies and Depravity, was... I was very excited. I was in a funny place actually when I started that. I'd done a lot of stuff. I'd got a lot out of my system. I'd played about with a lot of shorts, features, music videos, all kinds of things, and I was quite happy with where I was. But I did want to progress onto something. I'd invested and got some new equipment. We was on HD. We'd moved out of the world with the new technology, and I was ready to go. It was quite a different experience for me because I was working from an unusual script for what I work with, and I was working with new people I've not worked with before, and I kind of was at the centre. I was at the throne of this world that we'd created, where everything was down to me to just get this thing shot, sounding, looking, and being all right, which was quite a big pressure. Although I've done it many times, it is quite pressure. It's quite worrying. Especially, I was finding the first few shoots, I was finding my feet on this new production, how it was coming together, and I was being a very traditional filmmaker. I was shooting a few angles, coverage, and I was being like very film school like actually.
So I think the film played out at 4 screenings and 2 in Sweden as well from sort of June 2012, and then I don't think we got distribution until about the October of that year. We'd nearly completed filming the sequel by the time we had distribution for the first one. We knocked on every door. It was an absolute nightmare. The UK wasn't taking risks on releasing £50 indie films for the cost of the BBFC and the fear that they'd never claim their money back.
Overall, it was a great experience. There was a few shoots that were quite tough, but honestly, considering stuff I've done in the past, it was actually quite a walk in the park. I had a lot of fun with it. The cast, and there wasn't really many crew. There was me and Wade and Vicky, and we had a few makeup artists, but it was very minimal crew. But the cast were great to work with, and they did gel quite quick, and everyone did get on. I can't really think of any major problems. Some of the shoots were quite long, but again, they weren't really a big deal for me, and it was more to the fact that we were trying to film a lot, not a lot of time, and I think we did like 10, 11 days, spread out throughout the early part of 2012, but it ran smooth. I mean, I've got memories of eating out-of-date bacon sandwiches in the pouring wet, pissing rain, one early hours in the morning, which I think I was going to get food poisoning from, because I realised halfway through eating all these bacon sandwiches, because I do like my food, that they'd actually the same sandwiches that had been frozen from about a month before when we started the shoot. So I felt a bit cheated by it, and I think people know who they are that are involved in that.
So the sequel was given birth to, and that was entitled Ethan before the title changed by the distributors.
Wade threw More Sex, Lies and Depravity my way, like, in a matter of weeks after the screening of the first one. The first one was in the stages of getting distributed, and we had tied it up, so it was no time at all. I sat there to breathe, and then the next thing he had wrote a script for the sequel. And I've got to admit, I loved it. I thought it was better than the first.
I'd say the second film was a lot smoother. The cast knew each other really well. Through the screening process, we'd become a bit of a family as well. So it was definitely an easier film. There was a lot of new cast members in the next film, which was difficult in places. But certainly, I think we tore through More Sex Eyes in 7 or 8 days, and we started at the beginning of September and ended, it was about the 10th of October. And there was a lot more involved in the second film. There was a lot more locations. We'd sort of upped the game a bit. The budget had been upped as well.
And the good thing is there wasn't much casting because a lot of the people returned. There was a few new faces, but the main core was obviously some of the same people. And I think everyone upped their game on that. I think everyone was quite excited to return, which is, again, it was amazing because sometimes that isn't the case. But this was quite a nice, happy family, and there was a lot of fun. Again, to be honest, it was like the first one. There was a lot of fun. I can't think of really any major troubles.
I think Jason was strong and knowledgeable with the storyline now. I think he was really comfortable with where he wanted to go with it and how he wanted to evolve it.
Boys Behind Bars is a ridiculous area of my filmmaking career. It was a monster I gave birth to that I didn't have a fucking clue where that was going to go.
It's no secret that I'm a massive fan of the jailhouse flicks. And And while we were editing More Sex, Lies and Depravity, me and Jason would regularly have some really shite films on the TV, some really trash throwback stuff.
I watch a lot of trash cinema, and I was editing More Sex, Lies and Depravity, and Wade was coming in and out of the edit, seeing how it was going, and we were working on some promotional videos for it and stuff. And we were sharing our love for grindhouse and exploitation films, and I love Jess Franco and all this European sleaze and horror films from the 70s and 80s, and we used to have a lot of banter about our film tastes, and there was lots of joking and mocking going on about some of the stuff I would have on in the background while editing, and it led to us getting excited and giving birth to a concept where Wade loves the prison subgenre of films and I love the exploitation side, and we concocted this ridiculous modern day exploitation film that was a throwback to the 80s video nasties, but we were actually going to set it in the 80s and be a little bit political and in your face with it.
But yeah, so that was about going to find cast for that, which, as you can imagine, finding a cast for a film called Boys Behind Bars is never an easy thing to do. But we got there in the end, and you know, and I'd done Ethan in Sex, Lies and Depravity, and he was kind of a nice guy on the wrong tracks, really. But now I wanted to play an absolute fucking twat. So I gave birth to Daryl in that, and he's just lovely.
There's like 2 tracking shots at the beginning. The rest of it, I am shooting on a DSLR on a Steadicam rig. So it's just me running around in a room with a full wall. So there was just this 3-walled area. Sounds simple. I was a fucking idiot and decided to put a green card up at the window. So my bright idea was, oh, let's put some green on the window, and then in the edit I'll put some bars on there to give it the prison cell. I fucking regret doing that. It sounded like an easy idea until I come to the edit.
Shooting Boys Behind Bars was easy as piss, really. We set the room up, cleared the room out. We'd gone and got some props, so we'd got the old pull-out metal bed, and we had a bedpan. There's a lot of dispute about the bedpan as well. In a boys' ball stool, a few decades ago, you would have been shiting into a pot and cleaning it out in the morning, so that's why that's there, if anyone was wondering. You know, just a little desk in there, some postcards that we'd scribbled obscenities around on the wall, picture of Jason on the wall that was my boyfriend. So yeah, and then, do you know what the idea of this film was? We had stages to hit, so start, next bit, middle, next bit, end. So we had bits, but we just rolled almost in 15-minute segments. And there was really not a lot, if anything, that was cut from the film. We just wanted to roll it. And to be fair as well, to my knowledge, and I'm sure they are, the 3 guys that had signed up for this film were heterosexual. So because I like to have a bit of fun, it was imperative for me to really scare the living shit out of them for real.
Oh, it's like filming a theatre play. I had the guys were in place, and I let it just play out and went with the action. Did a few angles and retakes, but it was very much like a drama theatre play.
I kept out of the edit of Boys Behind Bars. I really didn't want a part in it. As soon as Jason rang me and said he's having a nightmare with some colour coding and green screen stuff, I just said, I'm going to fucking leave this one to you. I speak on behalf of Jason, but he would probably still remember it as one of his most traumatic editing experiences. You wouldn't think that... Well, you know, when we were making that film, we thought, oh, this is going to be a piece of piss, we're going to have some fun with it, we're going to edit it, we're going to roll it out. I don't think Jason was expecting the nightmare that was about to shit right in his lap, to be honest.
The filming was so simple, and the idea was to do a simple film, to do a quick little distribution deal and share our love for trash cinema. That's not how it worked out in post. It became an absolutely fucking nightmare, one of my editing nightmares. I realised that, obviously, when I came to green screen the bars, there's not one still shot in Boys Behind Bars. That film is a constant moving film, because there's little location and little action, because it's just tight space. To make it more interesting, the camera's constantly moving. That meant I fucking couldn't put these bars in the window without every single frame having to mess about. So I sorted it in the end after a lot of swearing, cursing, nearly throwing the edit machine through the window and getting completely fucking stressed out with it. I managed to do it.
One Last Chance at Paradise, formerly known as Last Chance at Paradise. I've got to be very honest, I fucking hate it with a vengeance. I absolutely hate that film. I very rarely publicise it. Unfortunately, me and Jason find it impossible to get away from that film.
I was happy to do it, but everything went wrong. The day went terribly wrong, so I didn't feel like I could concentrate like I needed to. I loved filming the scenes of Honeybayne and Wade and Connor. All three of them in those scenes were perfect. That was fine. We filmed those scenes first, and I actually was quite excited about the film. I thought this could be alright. I always thought the film would be alright, but I thought, yeah, these are quite gritty films. It was almost like returning to Sex, Lies and Depravity a bit. It was that kind of feel and style.
So my idea was to try something sentimental and art house. Really go art house.
So I worked with what I had, which wasn't a lot. There wasn't a lot to work with, and I sat there one morning and finished it. And it was okay, but I thought, fuck, what have I done here? What's this? And I thought, this is I actually thought it was probably the worst film I'd ever made, so I was a bit upset and a bit concerned.
We had my friend Honeybayne came on board. She'd just come back from the USA, and she was back in the UK, and she came on board, did a lovely job, absolutely loved the actors in it, no problem. We had Connor Paganini.
The thing is, the distributor did an amazing trailer, and I watched the trailer and I actually thought, fucking hell, this looks like a good film. So I was even sold by the trailer. So it just shows you what marketing can do. If a distributor gets behind you and markets your film, it's amazing what can happen.
The idea of a Sex, Lies and Depravity 3 had been batted backwards and forwards so many times. There'd been 2 scripts written for it. But I think by that point, me and Jason had moved on from Sex, Lies. I mean, even in the last year, that's come up in conversation again. Are we going to return? No, I don't think so. But it has been batted backwards and forwards. But I knew there was a deep desire with both me and Jason, which was eating away at us, and we definitely had a passion to want to make a sequel to Boys Behind Bars 2.
Wade was let loose on Boys 2, and he really drove that into dark territory, and I think he was really trying to play the LGBT market with that. I was very pleased Honeybayne came on that film. I'd worked with her on Last Chance at Paradise.
But we did offer out one of the cast members to return to the sequel. They turned it down. Interesting. However, I of course was happy to return. Because that's the sort of pain I like to put myself through.
See, that was quite good. See, Wade was specialising in this homoerotic area. I was whacking in some of this thriller and gore, and between the two of us, we concocted something.
Someone very important that I wanted to use again, and that was Honeybayne, because she just is a powerhouse when it comes to these sorts of projects. So we divided a character, the evil warden, so because we'd seen no wardens in the original film, or prison officers, or whatever you want to call them in your respective countries. So Honeybayne played Miss Alison Muncher.
Well, there was only 5 of us. There was me as the whole crew making it, and then Wade with Connor and James and Honey in it, with Wade co-directing with me. So there was just us 5 there for the day. It was fun. I think we all had a good time.
I think the only interesting thing that sort of transpired here was Boys 1 hadn't been perceived as a gay film. There was no gay scenes or lover, and I think Sex, Lies and Depravity had been a hell of a lot gayer than Boys Behind Bars, the original, was. And we did decide to take Boys 2 into a more LGBTI stream. It's a film about fucking boys in prison.
I think we got an outrageous sex scene in it, which does help sell it.
We moved away from a cell. We had the shower blocks and a prison changing room. The 2 brothers come in, they're talking about drugs deal, blah 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 blah. Daryl then makes his return after having a wank in a cubicle, and then situations turn a bit nasty between the boys, because Daryl's rumping one of the brothers and a bit of good old homophobia kicks in, and then Ms. Muncher appears, which turns into a hostage situation, and then the film kind of goes a bit mental. Shotguns up the bum, rocks around the head, anal in the toilets, that sort of thing. Twink has been the absolute highlight of anything I've ever done. I feel really, really lucky how well that was pulled off in the end, because it was yet again another thing we really didn't know how it was going to go.
Twink is a film that I'm very fond of as a filmmaker. Actually, I was very excited. Wade had this idea to play this neglected, retired, or used and washed up porn star, and I thought it was a very dark film, as always with Wade's ideas. It was very dark. I'm quite a fan of raw, simple filmmaking, and I love the simplicity of what me and Wade come up with Twink. Once we spoke about the idea and we adapted it about, I realised this could be a very simple, easy film, but I actually thought that was very appealing about it. But I also thought, I believe Wade could pull off a very good performance. I knew he knew what he wanted out of his character, and he had he played about a lot and had a lot of range with it. And but the only worry with Twink when I was making it is I thought, right, I just hope I don't make a very boring film.
From the time we started filming it, and by the time we'd edited and released it, and we started getting the reviewers on board, looking at it and reviewing back, I felt really privileged that the message we were trying to tell was heard loud and clear.
Shooting Twink was great fun, but it was hard. It's mentally exhausting, actually, and you do mentally get worn out. We actually spent all day. It took so much longer than Boys Behind Bars 1 to shoot amazingly. Even Last Chance, all these films were done a lot in half the time as what Twink did.
So it was important to me to visualise where does a Twink go after a Twink is no longer a Twink. A Twink is a limited time shelf. You're blonde, you look 18 to 20, you're skinny as fuck. But what happens after that? Because naturally we all grow older. Naturally the hair darkens, the hair turns grey. We put on weight as the metabolism goes up the shitter. So what happens then? What happens to someone that has lived the attention dream of being told how beautiful they are by everyone, but these people seem unaware that one day they're going to have to deal with the ugliness that life naturally brings to all of us.
After I'd shot it, I felt good about it. I was still, obviously, until you ever see a film, I was very concerned about, have we filmed enough? Are we going to hit feature length? Is it interesting? Is it good enough? We did some very crazy, I made some very crazy choices as a filmmaker. I did some very long, unbroken takes, and I sat the camera there and just let it roll out the drama. It was a very big gamble to me, because it was down to Wade to keep that audience engaged and to give the performance of a lifetime, really.
Some people say Twink is a low down and dirty film. I say it's an educational film, and it was meant to be educational. The ending's debatable. I know that sparked a lot of debate, a lot of different mixed emotions about the ending of Twink.
When it came together, I watched it and I actually thought, shit, I'm really excited about this. And I was anyway, but I really started to feel like this is so original.
The undertones of Twink is that everybody is using everybody. You know, the documentarian was using Quinn to fulfill his own career. Quinn was aware of that, and in life we're all using each other a lot of the time, even if we don't know it. We'd done Boys 1, which was the single setting with a lot of bitching and tension and a few gross moments. We'd done Boys 2, which had sort of racked the scale up on homoeroticism, and then we had Boys 3, which was mental.
When it come to Boys Behind Bars 3, I think I approached that with Wade, because Wade obviously thought we should do a third one, and I thought, right, well, this was going to be the first time that I'd actually made a trilogy, because we was going into the second sequel. It was quite something. I think because of my feelings on Boys 2, I felt like we had to seriously push this film quite far, because I wanted to obviously be better than Boys 2, and I wanted to try and outdo the first one.
Boys 3, I think the cards that were on the table for that film was, here's the setting, here's what needs to happen, now everyone go fucking mental.
So when it came to it, I was pushing Wade and I'm going like, be more outrageous, be nasty and stuff. So Wade knew his character Daryl very well. He went all out as he always does. He put a hole in the set door. He smashed property that weren't his. Getting into character and doing it. It was all very good.
There was nudity and gum cutting and strangulation, necrophilia, some really tense racism undertones from Muncher between her and the black inmate, which was like to watch at some points, because they both, Renee and Honeybane, who played Muncher, they just went, if we're going to do this fucking storyline properly, we're just going to fucking do it.
We ended up having necrophilia in it, extreme full frontal nudity, gore, attempted rape, murder, bloodshed, violations with chair legs, all kinds of crazy shit. Man, it is actually unbelievable.
Boys Behind Bars 3 I co-directed with Jason again. I didn't have nearly anything to do with the post-production editing of Boys 3, so Jason will have to tell you about that one. But it was intense when I saw it. I believe on that film actually I was Skype conferencing through while it was being edited.
When it all calmed down, I come home to edit it. I actually thought, this is just a work of hate. I don't know what's wrong with us. It was a work of pure hatred. I think from where I was coming from, it was frustration at the film industry. It was aggression of some of the treatment by it, and there was a lot of that in there to me. There was a lot of like fingers up to society and the industry and making our mark. But my God, I scared myself. While I was editing that, I realised just how nasty this film was. Originally, it was going to be a kind of snuff film, but that kind of fell on its arse, which worked out for the better, because it ended up being me and Wade again, just as a two crew piece.
Corpse fucking, coming on corpse, documentarian, touching jizz on corpse, skull heads down the toilet, strangulation, etc., etc.
We went much more on a documentary route. It wasn't so art house. This was much more as a shockumentary. I was a documentary filmmaker going to see a necrophiliac and really just document him. But obviously, as it is a horror film, things take a wrong turn, and it all goes horribly wrong. I took a much bigger role acting-wise in it. I put myself in the camera a lot more, and I multi-camera shot it, which creates more editing. But I wanted to make it different. Fluid Boy, I got very excited about. To be honest, for years I've wanted to make a kind of fake snuff film, or is it fake? And I wanted to do it as a throwback film. I actually wanted to shoot it on VHS and analogue and make it very gritty and nasty.
Jason was looking to film another little short segment for another collaborative film, and so Fluid Boy was born. Another horror film. We were going snuff film style this time, which is an idea me and Jason had toyed with again. Jason had done a lot of snuff films back in the day.
So I decided to go nuts and use 6 cameras. And I used 6 cameras because I wanted to set the film up, because we had limited time, so that it could feel like a realistic snuff film. So once we'd set up, we could just roll it and keep going like in real time and do this stuff without starting, and it just felt a lot more natural and more realistic. And then I also thought, if I've got 6 cameras, I can capture all the action without worrying, and then it'll make the editing more interesting rather than sitting there. Rather than one camera just sat there looking at me for like a feature running time, this would make it more interesting to the eye to watch. But I also shot a VHS only version, which is alright, but is a bit more boring, so I'm glad I did the 6 camera trick. And it was mad. I was shooting on HD, HDV and VHS, so there was a real mixed bag there. But I love the fact that I got to shoot VHS snuff like I've always wanted to do. And I had delved into this in the past. I had done some fake snuff films.
And it does what it says on the tin yet again. Bitch comes to audition, bitch gets fucked up.